Please see exhibit A. No, it's not exhibit A. It's like exhibit like 400,552 of why the Milwaukee Brewers are outclassing the Cincinnati Reds.
You are Locked On MLB Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? I'm Jeff from Locked On Reds. He's Chuck from Locked On Brewers. And on today's Locked On MLB Crossover, that is brought to you by FanDuel. By the way, check out the FanDuel app today because every goal pays and every goal means so much more. That's over on FanDuel.com. We are going to be discussing yet another dominant series, undressing, that the Milwaukee Brewers had of the Cincinnati Reds, because there have now been 7 games in 2026, and the Brewers have won 6 of those between the Reds and the Brewers. We are going to break down why Terry Francona was completely outclassed by Pat Murphy in this series a little bit later on. In just a few minutes, I want to talk about Jacob Misiorowski and Chase Burns, because that was a heck of a way to end the series there on Thursday afternoon. But let's start first, Chuck, with this, because 2026 was earmarked by Reds fans and honestly low-key earmarked by the organization. A couple of seasons ago, whenever Elly, Cruz, Matt McLain, all these guys started getting called up, and we're like, okay, 2026, it feels like 2025, 2026, we should be expecting this team to be in contention. And here the Reds are, under 500, one of the worst teams in baseball in a lot of different statistical categories, and far out of contention. Meanwhile, the Milwaukee Brewers continue to dominate, at least in the summertime. And I think that the fall ball will really start to come. I kind of think they're going to advance far into this year's playoffs, but they have built this juggernaut of a team in the NL Central. What is it that has led the Brewers to be this dominant? Because quite frankly, we know it's not that the Brewers are all of a sudden spending $350 million in payroll.
Mm-hmm. Well, for most of my lifetime, it has not been like this with the Milwaukee Brewers. One World Series appearance. This has been a thing, Jeff, I think for only, I would say since Yelich got here. So I'd say 2018, a little bit 2017, where there's always been a great concentration on the farm system, and that has worked out for them. And what the Brewers have been able to do is not only draft well, develop well, but while we're drafting and developing, winning ball games as well. Because most times, if you're going with young guys, you're losing. You're struggling. Right. You can't get out of your own way. But the Brewers this whole time, these guys are getting better and better while the Brewers have been in contention, winning division titles. And I'm telling you, in any sport, that is difficult to do, to not only develop players, but develop them under the guise of winning. And that's what the Brewers have been able to do. Top to bottom, the franchise is A1. The only thing, as you mentioned, and you put a disclaimer on it, and I agree with you, in the summertime we've done this. We haven't done this in October just yet. We haven't figured that part about it. But summer baseball, the Brewers got it aced. They're one of the best teams in baseball over the last 10, 11 years, record-wise, in the regular season.
Well, I know this, and I speak for quite a few Reds fans in this regard. Like, we would trade places with the Brewers immediately. Like that's how we feel, because it has been year after year of futility where it's like, okay, there's a performance here and a performance there, and there are moments here and moments there, but they never add up and they don't equate to, consistent summers worth of fun. Our friend Sully over at Locked On MLB loves to talk about the fact that it's hard to say that every year out it is a team's job to deliver a World Series championship. What the team needs to deliver is a fun summer for its fan base. And quite frankly, Chuck, there's been a lot of weeks and days and games and series in this season that Reds fans have just been like, what on earth is going on? And it just seems to be that we've gotten to a point where there's been a lot of talent and there's been a lot of guys that scouting reports just absolutely gush about, but they don't develop. And I think that's been the biggest key. And you hit on that with the Brewers. They are so good at that development. That the development part of any player's process through the major leagues. And then they've put it all together in a major league roster that just 1 through 9 in the hitting order, 1 through 5 in the rotation. And I mean, from closer on down to middle relief, those guys know how to deliver.
They do. And the Brewers, even when they get guys who other teams do not want, somehow they come in here and deliver. The Brewers make these off-season deals, and it seems like at the time when the Brewers make the off-season deals, we're sitting here and thinking, man, what are we doing trading Caleb Durbin, who was a Rookie of the Year candidate, for who? Kyle Harrison? He didn't do anything with San Francisco and Boston, and he comes here, and he's like a Cy Young candidate. I will say this about your team, Jeff. I thought after you guys made the playoffs last year and you lost in the short series with the Dodgers, no shame losing the Dodgers. We've been there. That this was going to be the year to take the next step. And we've seen a lot of you guys here in the last 2 weeks, right? 3 last week, 4 this week. I feel like certain guys with you guys have not taken that extra step. And I'm not saying Elly de la Cruz still can't be great, but at what point is de la Cruz going to take that next point up to the superstar level? I don't see it just yet. I think he's got the tools, Jeff, but we have not seen it. Would you agree on that, or I have not seen most? I have not seen him play every day like you have.
I would pretty much agree with you there, because it felt like before he went on the injured list with a hamstring injury, he was a bona fide all-star, absolute. Like there's no objective argument. I know it's still fan voting, and you've got Dodgers and Mets fans that just stuff the ballot boxes, but at the same time, I still felt like he deserved it on merit. And after this hamstring injury, he's really not quite gotten back to where he was pre-injury. But this is a lot of what we've heard over the last couple of years, is that it's like there are small parts of the season where he dominates, and then there are other parts of the season that kind of mellow that out because he goes through a slump and he goes through a stretch of lower production. So he hasn't quite taken that step. It's clear he's got the tools to be a superstar. But I agree with you. I don't think that he has taken that step just yet. And in fact, even in our preseason Lockdown MLB player rankings, he was definitely lower than I thought he should be. But at the same time, I understood why he wasn't in the top 15, top 10 of the players in the league. So I'm with you. Like, he is a microcosm of that, because we have other guys that we talked about who are X factors for this season going well. And literally all of those X factors have gone the opposite of well, as in like Matt McLain and Noelvi Marte and guys like that. And I know Marte homered in the series, but he has become like this homer or nothing guy. He is not a very reliable fielder. And there's so much about this that it feels like could have developed a little bit better. And I think that's really where the point hits home with the Brewers. I mean, they've got a great front office structure, and I think that everybody covets people coming out of that front office. That's why the Mets threw all the money in the world at David Stearns, and that's why Steve Cohen continues to throw his support behind David Stearns. But I think at the end of the day, it's how the Brewers build up their own players, whereas we see this time and time again where the Reds get guys to the major leagues, they struggle, and then they get sent down, and then they look good in AAA, and so they bring them back up, and then they struggle, and then we start the whole process over again. It's very cyclical in Cincinnati.
Well, let me give you an example of the veteran you signed. And when you guys signed him, Jeff, I remember texting you when you signed Suarez to play third base, and the Brewers have a definite hole at third base. I was like, my God, you got him at a cheap price. Why weren't the Brewers in on this? I was so disappointed the Brewers did not go after him. I look on the scoreboard on Tuesday night when you and I are both at AmFam Field, and I see 206 up there with a handful of home runs. I'm like, thank God we didn't sign this guy.
Yeah,
thank God.
It's been
right.
It's been a bummer, because I really thought that the reunion would yield some awesome results, but I did too. It's been anything but. But I know this: these two teams have two of the best pitchers in the National League. We saw them working on Thursday, and I think we saw the NL Cy Young on the mound on Thursday. We'll talk about that coming up next. A big thank you to our friends over at Amazon for this limited break. This back-to-school season, spend less on your kids with Amazon. Look, we all know how crazy back-to-school shopping can really get. I mean, the experience starts out with just a couple of school supplies, like maybe a pencil here or a stapler there, maybe a pair of scissors over here, and then all of a sudden you're buying, like, Trapper Keepers and stuff. Look, do people buy Trapper Keepers anymore? Anyway, the point is your list gets insane. I mean, when you buy clothes for back to school, then your kid has a growth spurt 2 weeks later, and you're right back where you started. Sometimes it genuinely feels like they're growing faster than your budget can keep up. Or when you're buying supplies and you find yourself asking how a calculator became one of the more expensive items in the cart. The graphing and the scientific and all the different calculators. I mean, I wasn't expecting math to start costing me money before school even began. It feels like there's a life lesson in there somewhere. I'm still trying to figure it out, though. So remember, with Amazon's low back-to-school prices, just spend less on your kids, because every dollar you don't spend on them is a dollar that you haven't spent on them. Shop back to school at Amazon and spend less on your kids. Thanks for making this Locked On MLB crossover between the Reds and the Brewers part of your day. Look, you already make Reds and Brewers part of your day here on Locked On. We invite you to take it up a notch. Go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club. Locked On Brewers, Locked On Reds both have these. You can follow the link down in the description of today's episode for Locked On Reds and Locked On Brewers as well. It's $5 a month, $50 for the whole year. You can get ad-free episodes all season long. You can get a group chat in the Discord where you get to talk trash with other teams. And quite frankly, Brewers fans probably get to talk a lot more trash than Reds fans do. But, you know, I mean, at least there's the Pirates. We do have that. But you also have so much more. Please check out the link in the description below for the Everydayer Club. All right, Chuck, Thursday was quite the culmination. I was a bit jealous because I'd always planned to come up to Milwaukee for the first two games of the series, and I was hoping that I would run into Jacob Misiorowski and Chase Burns, and really hoping that it would be at the same time. And unfortunately, that was on Thursday. That was not the game that I was there, but it was a heck of a game. Got the chance to watch it and watch it very closely. And yes, Jacob Misiorowski had one of the starts where he ends up giving up runs. That happens to every pitcher who has ever played the game. I don't think anybody has a career ERA of 0 unless they only pitched like one game and then they got sent back down again. But yeah, at some point people give up runs. And even amidst those runs, I confidently say that Jacob Misiorowski is going to win the NL Cy Young this year. I think that everything that he is delivering and the way that he is able to deliver it is going to make him a very award-winning pitcher, albeit Chase Burns, man, he's always going to be there too.
First of all, New Glarus Brewing stock has gone up considerably since your Monday visit. It's gone through the roof. The town is still buzzing.
We got to get some spotted cow back on tap there at American Family Field, man. I got some Moon Man, but they didn't have any spotted cow on tap. What's that?
Well, you didn't run into the Miz and Burns, but you ran into you and I getting together for a couple of minutes of chat, and that was fun. Your lovely bride as well. But this matchup today, I love Burns. I think he's phenomenal. I saw him pitch Saturday against the Pirates, and I thought he was a little off. But he was, he hung in there. I think he got no decision because you guys scored late in that game. But these are two of the premier pitchers in this division, and Miz didn't pitch great, but you guys got him for a couple of home runs today. He said he made one bad pitch. Trevino got him for a blast, two of them, and then you guys hit a home run a little bit later on in the game. But Miz is going to be in this division for as long as the Brewers can keep him, right? This is the division where we kind of lose our players to other teams. The Cubs shouldn't, but we do once they get great, and the Brewers certainly do. But Miz didn't have a classic Miz performance, but he had enough to get the job done. Unfortunately, Burns, on the other hand, it was tough getting the scoreboard against him. I thought he's really good. I remember him coming out of Wake Forest. I love the kid, and you guys got him a really, really good one. Yeah, we got the guy who's throwing 105 miles an hour at times, but I think Burns is on his way to having a terrific season. He already is. I think it's just going to keep on building on that.
It's interesting because he's going to run into an innings cap at some point, and I hate even talking about that. And that's the only time I'm going to mention it on this podcast. I promise. Lockdown Reds every day is we're not going to dive into that. We've done that a couple of times, and people are like, "Oh, why you got to tell me about how much he's not going to pitch here in a little bit?" But his performance is crazy enough that it's like he's got 2 pitches, and he's working on a changeup. Doesn't quite have it down to the point that he's confident in it yet. He just throws the fastball and the slider. But JJ Cooper from Baseball America tweeted out during this game, he was just like, pretty sure without looking at it, but I'm pretty confident that this is like the only start in the history of Chase Burns throwing pitches that he has been 4 to 5 miles an hour slower on average with his fastball than the guy he's facing, because of just how Miz is able to throw so fast. And I also saw that stat that the home run that Sal Stewart hit off of him in the first inning was like the hardest pitch ever thrown that was hit by a homer in the first inning. You know, one of those baseball stats. It was like the first time.
Oh, yeah.
On a Tuesday, whatever. Thursday. That was Thursday. Anyway, the point being, it was kind of a funky stat, but they even said that there's only ever been 8 other home runs hit off of pitches thrown 102 miles an hour or faster. And it was crazy to see too, because it wasn't a half swing, but it was one of those swings where it's just like Sal saw the pitch and he's just like, I'm just going to make sure that I make contact with this. It wasn't his full, load back and then step through it swing. It was kind of more of like a 3/4 swing, and he just got the barrel on it perfectly.
I think that's the thing is with Pat Murphy, the Brewers manager says, we got to stop talking about how fast Miz throws and get down to the details and where he's making the location, because all these guys, we're not playing little league ball. All these guys at the major leaguers level can hit the ball at 100 miles an hour. They all can do it, some better than others. So that's what Miz needs to get going here is, he's lost 2 of his last 3, but he hasn't pitched badly. He hasn't had run support, and today running against Burns, but he needs to be able to locate his pitches, which he's done better than he did last year. And if he keeps going that direction, the sky is the limit. The Brewers, sure, it's great when he throws 105 miles an hour, but they're more concerned with where he's throwing that 105 mile an hour pitch. So, it's funny you guys got off to that early lead today with the first inning home run. I feel like the pattern for the Brewers against the Reds, I feel like this has been a long-standing pattern, even though the Brewers have dominated the series. The Reds always enjoy a couple of minutes early on, a couple of innings where they get off to an early lead. Here we go. Oh, this might be the night the Reds win. And then inevitably, the Brewers will just start putting something together and take control of the game, and then it's lights out. The first 3 games of the series kind of went that way. We're thinking, okay, it was 2-2 on Wednesday night, and then the Brewers got those, Garrett Mitchell, they got the RBI triple and then a wild pitch. But, yeah, I just what is bizarre about this series between these 2 teams is how the Brewers have been able to dominate against a Reds team that I think is pretty good. But for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, Jeff, but when you guys play us, that's not the same team I see when you're playing the Pirates on a Saturday or a Friday night. I don't know what it is, but you guys come here and we go there, man, all the magic goes to Milwaukee's way. They get every break and they somehow win the games. It's incredible how you can go 51-20 or whatever it is at this point against a division opponent.
You and I were texting back and forth during this game, and you kept saying, I really think that the Reds are going to end up winning this. And I did not agree with you until Garrett Mitchell just lost his mind and did not see that the fly ball was caught in center field by TJ Friedel. And then they threw him out at first base because he was over at third base. Like, wait, what? They caught the ball? Was honestly at that point, whenever he got on base, I thought they were going to start coming back. And that was the point where I'm like, okay, I think I kind of believe you here. And then, there were some hits along the way. That was before Trevino's home run, I think. So I was like, okay, I can maybe see this going through, but it was a heck of a pitching matchup. I expect we'll see more of those going forward. 6 games left between the two teams this regular season. And of course, like you mentioned, Miz and both Chase Burns under a lot of team control over the next couple of years. But there's one other part about this series that was staggering to me, and it was just the amount of dominance that Pat Murphy had in the over-managing game over Terry Francona. We'll talk about that next. I encourage you to keep the conversation going with us after the show is over. You can follow Chuck on Twitter at Chuck Freimund. That's his whole name all put together. It's nice when you have a name like that you can put it all together, because with me, my name's put together, but I had to add another F in there. It's Jeff Carr with 3 Fs over on X or on TikTok as well. The third F, though, is my middle initial. So just it's there. It's not like I had to just throw in an extra letter that doesn't mean anything. But yeah, that's how you follow us after the show's done. Chuck,
I'll say this, Jeff. When you and I ran into to each other at the game the other day, I swear I ran into 4 Jeff Carrs before running into the real Jeff Carr. You had at least 4 doppelgangers. I don't know if you planned that, but there were 4 Jeff Carrs, including one in a Reds jersey that I was like, then finally you came up to me. I'm like, oh, this has got to be the right Jeff Carr.
Well, I know that Tim Daniel wasn't there, which everybody says that the Reds postcast host Tim Daniel looks a lot like myself.
He does.
I have to do that. I have to see. Yeah, it was a great experience. I will say this, like American Family Field, that I think I will probably still subconsciously, if you ask me to, call it Miller Park. And I know that I never went to it when it was called Miller Park, but it's Miller Park.
Yeah, we still
was a fantastic. Yeah, it's a fantastic experience. That is a great ballpark, and we were there Monday and Tuesday night. After Tuesday night's game, I guess there was like some inclement weather expected overnight, so they shut the roof. And I've always been curious of being like in a ballpark with a retractable roof like that, just how kind of it goes. Is it loud? Is it quiet? Like what it was. And like, honestly, I didn't know it was closing until I looked up and I'm like, wait a minute. Space, like the sky looks smaller. I think it's closing. And then we watched it and I'm like, that's pretty cool.
That's the best thing the Brewers have ever done. I mean, I hate to say that, but I mean, putting a roof over that ballpark when they decided to do that, when they built the new ballpark, was a genius move, because now, and you came here when it was warm out, but we got some terrible cold days, and sometimes it doesn't warm up until July around here. So 50-degree days, nobody wants to sit in the ballpark, or 40-degree days, or when it's raining to watch a game. You go inside and watch a ball game. It's an incredible move that the Brewers had the foresight on.
If GPS doesn't mess up your route from Cincinnati to Milwaukee, you can go around Chicago and it'll only take you something like 5.5 hours. I feel like our GPS like had a hiccup and took us right through Chicago, and it took 4 hours to get to Milwaukee. But
oh God.
No, I very much enjoyed the trip, and I recommend every Reds fan go up and check out the stadium there for any Milwaukee Brewers game, let alone a Brewers Reds series. But one thing that staggered me a bit with this series, Chuck, was just how much Pat Murphy managed circles around Terry Francona. And they were even talking about it on the television broadcast on Thursday, the way that Pat Murphy structured the lineup against Chase Burns. They had set up 3 lefties in that they were basically daring Terry Francona to bring out one of the lefties in the bullpen so that then they could drop in Andrew Vaughn as a pinch hitter, who just absolutely destroys lefties and has destroyed Reds lefties in games past last week. So that was just a small example of it, but it seemed like all throughout this series and all throughout the 3-game sweep in Cincinnati, Pat Murphy looked like the guy who's about to go into the Hall of Fame here very soon, not Terry Francona.
You know, Pat Murphy was hired. It looked like he was the last resort. Oh, you know, we're going to hire this guy. It was an underwhelming move. And then he started managing games, and it's just wow. And as a member of the media, once in a while you can talk to these guys off the record, and you just how incredibly smart this guy is. So in his background is college coaching, and he coaches and manages this team like it's a collegiate team. That's not going to work for everybody, but it does work for this brand of the Milwaukee Brewers. Francona, on the other hand, I also think this with Jeff, with managers. Mm-hmm. He had talent in Cleveland. He had talent in Boston. Not that he doesn't have it in Cincinnati, but I think it's all about the Jimmies and Joes too. You got to have some talent on that team to make the manager look good, right? It's on the players too. It's on the players
100%.
Too.
100%. And that's where we've really ran into, an interesting conversation amongst Reds country in general as to how much blame do you place on this or that for 2026 so far. Mm-hmm. And I think we mostly land on the front office for putting together a roster of very interesting scenarios, such that Matt McLain found himself playing in center field on Wednesday's game. And it was just like, I mean, I get it, I guess, from the injury standpoint, but you got a guy on your bench, albeit not a platoon, not a good platoon matchup, because you have the lefty on the mound and Shane Drowan, but you also don't have another center fielder on the roster. So we're forcing the platoon matchup over the experience. It felt very strange there, but that kind of seems how this whole season has gone, where you're forcing this guy out of the bullpen in a scenario that doesn't suit him. You're putting this lineup together that is inadequate. You have this guy starting who has been cast off by his former team in Chris Paddock, who only recently just became a free agent. So there's been so many scenarios that it feels like Terry Francona has been dealt a hand of twos. And I know he loves to play him some cards. He's been dealt a hand of twos, and he's trying to figure out how to beat other guys that got a bunch of face cards. And it's just not been working.
Murphy is able to get, I look at it this way, like the layup line. You never go to a basketball game and you see this team take a pregame, layup line, and you see this team over here, and you say, man, this team over here is going to destroy this team over here. Well, then you get down to it, and this team over here that can't jump over a phone booth is doing all the right things and don't make many mistakes. And that's the Milwaukee Brewers. They do not beat themselves. They do not do dumb things. The Mitchell thing today, man, I could probably count on my one hand the number of dumb things the Brewers have done this year and still have a few fingers left over. They don't do things like that. And that's the thing, is they have a bunch of guys in this team that play very smart. That's a big part of it too. Now, I don't know the team IQ of your guys and how well they play and how smart a ball players, but this team makes up for maybe a lack of overall baseball talent by playing smart baseball, getting this guy over, bunting for a guy from second to third, laying the bunt down. And I've read, in fact, I was just reading today about your team, that they're trying to become more of that type of stationary team. Am I right of that? Or that Francona, there's been an organizational move for the Reds to play that type of ball?
They're trying to, for sure. And where you say that you can count on one hand and you still have fingers left over for the entire year as to the amount of mistakes that the Brewers have made, I need two hands for the amount of mistakes that the Reds have made in this series. So that's how this season has gone. There's just been too many errors with the glove. There's been too many, toot blands, like toot bland thrown out on a base pass like a nincompoop. Like, that's what these Reds tend to do too much. And they did that under David Bell. And so we thought, okay, bringing in Terry Francona is going to stop all that. It's been a season and a half now, and we are still talking about the same things that this team did under David Bell. And it's perplexing to me.
Sure.
That has not gone away. And they're just not getting there. They're just not bridging that gap between where they were in 2023 and where we thought they could be right now.
Sure. And another thing, this has nothing to do with talent or baseball IQ. Like at Tuesday's game, when the Brewers somehow, like when they lay a bunt down the third base line or first base line and somehow that ball always stays fair. I don't know
Yeah.
what's the reason, but I mean, for the 3 years that Murphy manages this team, they win challenges. Well, they're terrible on the ABS challenges, but man, I feel like when they challenge an out or a play at second base or whatever, it always goes their way. I don't know. They got a bunch of smart guys in that front office and in that dugout and their pitching coaches that combined to make this team. I didn't think they'd be in the position they would. If you would have told me before the season, Jeff, that a team would be 20 games over the 500 mark in this division and it'd be the Milwaukee Brewers, I say, no, it's probably going to be the Cubs. I hope it's the Milwaukee Brewers again. And I will say, and I'm not citing your team, probably the most disappointing team in the National League Central. Because I looked at this when this season started, when we did our preview, Jeff, I said it's going to be the Reds, the Brewers, and no disrespect to the Cardinals, but the Reds, the Brewers, and the Cubs who are going to fight for this division title.
Yeah.
And man, I would not have guessed you guys would be 5 or 6 games under the 500 mark at this point.
They are 6 game. What was it we said yesterday? Me and Steve were talking about this. They're 6 games out of the wild card right
46.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're 6 games out of the wild card right now, and they are only 6 games ahead of the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah.
Like not
only that. And you got to look at your 6 games out. It doesn't sound like a lot, but you got a lot of teams to leap over yet.
A lot of teams. Too many. And most of them have season series advantages over the Reds too. It's like
sure.
The deck is stacked against them moving forward. And could they have a July like they had in April? Like in April, they were amazing, 20-11. Could they do that in July?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I mean, baseball, but at the same time,
1-1 so far.
Right. But at the same time, what's most likely to happen? Reds fans know how to brace for this disappointment. And it's unfortunate that we're here, but there's lots more to get into where that's coming from. The Reds are back at home for a 9-game homestand here starting this July 4th weekend. I know that the Brewers are heading out on the road. They've got a tough schedule ahead with the Diamondbacks and a bunch of divisional games too.
Yeah, they go on the road, Jeff, for an 11-game road trip. They got to play 5 in St. Louis because there's a makeup doubleheader there. They finished it off with 3 in Pittsburgh. So the Brewers will not be at home for another 2 weeks. That's including the All-Star break. So they got to go on after the All-Star break. So it's 2 weeks that they're going to be gone away. So, but this is a big road trip starting in Arizona and St. Louis and then Pittsburgh. Tough road trip. But like I said, even though you guys are 6 out of the wild card, it is way too early to give in. Look what happened last year with Cleveland. And I'm not comparing you guys to Cleveland and saying that's going to happen, but man, I've seen some strange things happen. Technically, I think everybody is still in this thing.
I appreciate you saying that. I feel like that's a good spot to end this one here because the Brewers have a ton of momentum. They're trying to see if they can get ahead of the pack in the National League. The Reds, they're just trying to get the paddles going, build some momentum, maybe build a win streak. They're back home, seeing if they can do that. Baltimore coming up this weekend. Going to be talking with Connor Newcomb later on today, previewing that series. I know Chuck's going to have you covered on all things Brewers as they head out west to begin their road trip. That's all part of Locked On Reds, Locked On Brewers, all on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day.